Welcome to the Conscious Pivot Podcast with international speaker, business mentor, best-selling author of Pivot, and your host, Adam Markell. The Conscious Pivot shares the stories and wisdom of people who have successfully reinvented some area of their business and personal life. You'll gain powerful insights into how you can fully embrace new opportunities, increase your performance, and master the art and science of innovation and resilience. So please join Adam as he guides you on your conscious pivot.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Conscious Pivot Podcast. And I am thrilled today, more than thrilled, honored to be with somebody that I think is making a huge, huge difference in the world. And frankly, at the moment, I can just say he's made a huge difference in my life and in my wife Randy's life and a lot of people that I know in an area that I think is neglected more than almost anything. I think there's two areas in the personal development space that are neglected. One is our relationships. Anything to do with relationships. I think people always say, hey, I'm going to work on my relationship. I'm going to work on my relationship. But as soon as I get my money straight, as soon as I get my business straight, and that's a shame. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. It's the other one, which is health, which is taking care of yourself. And quite honestly, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. Doesn't matter how much money you have. Doesn't matter how much influence you have or anything else that you might value, your significance. Nothing will matter if you don't feel good. And I've known some folks that have had chronic issues, pain and illness and things. And there's just nothing that is tougher to deal with when when your health is not the way it can be. And I learned a few things last year that have changed my life. And many of you have seen me either on stage or in Zooms and things where I'm holding up a glass of green, like this green drink. And I've given the recipe that we've been using to a number of you as well, this Alkagizer drink that we start the mornings with. And I've mentioned this gentleman's name and I've mentioned a program called WildFit, but I've never had Eric, who I'm about to introduce you to, on our show to talk exactly about why it is that he got involved in this and made a big pivot in his own life and had some health issues and has had significant success in business, so he knows that end of it. But I think he can speak to the fact that money and success don't mean a whole lot when you can't be pain-free and be in a healthy place where you can have the energy and be able to show up for people, really show up. So this gentleman is somebody we absolutely love. His name is Eric Edmeades, and I think best that he share a little bit about his own pivot experience and what he's up to in the world these days. So Eric, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, Adam, thanks very much for having me. As you know, this message is a really important one for me to get out, and I really appreciate your introducing it to your tribe, and let's have some fun. Background-wise, you're right. I'm really more known as an entrepreneur. I've had kind of an eclectic and interesting business background. I started my first business in England in 1997 doing data capture, barcode scanning, wireless networking, logistics. I mean, super exciting stuff. And then I sold that business and ended up just, kind of accidentally getting involved in business speaking. I got invited to do a talk in London, and that led immediately to an invite to do a talk in Singapore about 3-4 days later, and then Australia and New Zealand. And over the next 2 years, my wife and I would do 20 countries on these 4 round-the-world plane tickets, just speaking about business and entrepreneurship. And I found it really fascinating. And what was really interesting is that people would often ask me, like, what's the key principle to business? And, they'd always expect that I was going to say something like, manage your cash flow. And, you got to, cash is king, or you got to hire the right people, or you got to have the right advisors around you, get good mentorship. And yeah, I would say all of those things. But here's the joke, though. Get your body right. Get your body right. Like that is the first principle of business, is get your body right. Your mind does not work optimally if your body isn't right. And you don't have optimal amounts of energy if your body isn't right. And so get your body right. And where I've been, I guess, kind of lucky is in a strange little feedback loop where, because of a major pivot in my health in my early 20s, I have had a phenomenal amount of energy and a phenomenal capacity to take on projects, and I've had really interesting business life. And after selling that business and speaking for a couple of years around the world, I ended up buying a movie studio in California that was the original heart of industrial light and magic. So we were doing movies like Avatar and Pirates of the Caribbean, and then we invented a a new technology around doing medical simulation that completely changed that industry. Like, I've had this eclectic business background, but I'll tell you what I'm really clear about is that that would not be true if I didn't have the energy to do what I do. If I didn't have the energy to be able to, I don't do jet lag. I fly to a country, I'm in a meeting 2 hours after I get off the phone. Why? Because I have the energy. And the short version of how that happened is that in 1991, I was sick. And I wasn't so sick that, I was dying. I just wasn't living. I had pervasive sinus infections, horrible. I had throat infections so severe that if you looked in my throat, it would have horrified you because my tonsils were bleeding. And I had stomach pains that were so bad that when they happened, I couldn't think. This was just, and Adam, the thing is, it's like, you get to this place when at least I did. And I'm not sure if you've ever had a flu or something where you've been sick for long enough that you stop thinking of it as sick and just the way things are.
Exactly. Like chronic.
Yeah, it was chronic. I mean, I'm talking years and years. And I'd been to doctors and specialists and more doctors and more specialists, and they prescribed creams and nasal sprays and pills and liquids and injections and eventually surgery. And none of those things worked for me. And until one day, a friend of mine sat me down and had a serious conversation with me about food. And I didn't see myself as somebody who ate particularly badly. I wasn't vastly overweight. I just needed to make some changes. And 30 days later, I'd lost 35 pounds. All of my symptoms were gone, symptoms that no pills, no drugs had ever been able to do much about. And what that activated in me is a powerful and driving curiosity as to how it was that doctors weren't able to create that result for me. And one day, idly, I'm not even sure what prompted me to ask this question, but I was talking to a doctor and I just idly asked this question. And the question was, how long did you go to medical school? And the answer was 6 years, 8 years. And I said, in that 6, 8 years, how much time was devoted to studying food? And the doctor said something that surprised me to no end, but the answer was none. Like none. And I then started asking every doctor I could meet this question. In fact, I remember asking my uncle, who was an orthopedic surgeon and a well-known, well-renowned orthopedic surgeon with whatever, 10 or 12 years of medical school under his belt. And I sat at the dinner table with him in Plettenberg Bay, South Africa. And I said to him, in all those years of medical school, how much time did you study food? And he cocked his head to one side, like a dog does when it's confused. And he went, like, what? And he said to me, he goes,
food isn't medicine.
No, you might think, but instead he had a realization. His response was none. And he, in that instant, understood how bizarre that was.
Wow.
We have a medical education system that does not focus at all on food. And we have a food manufacturing system that does not focus at all on health. And we wonder why we're in a lot of trouble. And so that pivot that I made in 1991 changed my life forever, but inspired me to do the same for other people. And so, and really the funny thing is that I've been really fortunate that by being successful in business, it's afforded me a huge amount of time and money to spend on research and travel and really delving deep into this issue. I've gone off numerous times to go live with Bushmen in East Africa to get a sense of what our ancestors' lives were like on a daily basis. Like, I've really dug into this stuff really deep. Then I spent a huge amount of time learning about behavioral change and behavioral psychology, because the fact is that diet programs don't work because they rely on willpower. Look, as long as the angel and the devil don't agree, you're going to eat some of the bad stuff. If you can get the angel and devil to agree, well, now everything changes. You see, diets based on willpower fail wholesale. Adam, I think, you've been through WildFit. We have a no kidding 80 to 90% success rate, which has never been seen before, as far as I know, in the diet world. In one of our clients that did our program as a partnership with us and ran several hundred people through the program. And just this week, they did a survey over a year later, right? All of our data comes out of people as they've done the challenge. This is over a year later, and 75% of the people are still reporting on track with their results. Like, that's brand new in the diet industry. And frankly, it's the thing that excites me most after my little girl and my family. The thing that excites me most right now is that we are having a measurable, solid impact on the health of thousands of people in over 20 countries around the world. And it's spilling now into the medical industry. I'm now being invited to speak at medical schools and at medical councils. And it's just super exciting stuff.
Yeah, Eric, I don't have to look that far, which is fortunate for me. I just have to literally look across my kitchen and look at Randy and see what's been going on with her. And she's always been, she's always been healthy, not an issue there, but she's more healthy. And, as we go to get on, I don't even know how to put this. I don't want to say get older. I don't want to say get on in years because it's when I don't.
As we progress through,
I don't really describe through that. But listen, our bodies change. Period. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're tracking this, but I'm tracking so many people these days talking about how quickly time is flying, and I say it a lot. And we're flying up to a college with our son today who's got his orientation and stuff. So I'm just reframing it in my own mind that the time is moving at the perfect pace and we're eternal anyway and all that kind of thing. But I'll just say, as I see changes in my own body and I see them in Randy, having a ritual, because that's part of our pivot processes, that we create master habits that sustain us, that create the capacity to be more resilient in a more disruptive environment and and at the same time, a more opportunistic environment. In business and in life, there's more opportunities than ever been before. We've got to be much more adept to seize those opportunities, be resilient for all the other changes that are happening constantly. I mean, look, the politics of our country, you don't live in the United States, but the politics here in North America and elsewhere in the world are daunting. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of sabotage that's going on through social media, where misinformation is perpetuated and there's propaganda. And you and I talked a little bit about that before we hit the record button. So we don't have to sort of digress down that road, but it's important. That's a part of, from me, what drives me to want to speak with you and share this information is the fundamental health question, or the fundamental importance of us taking care of ourselves so that we actually can maximize the opportunity we have to be an influence in the world for good. And we can't do that when we're sick. We can't do that when we're distracted, when we're going, oh, my aching back, my I'm carrying around, weight I can't get rid of, or diabetes, or any of the things that are caused by poor health and a poor understanding of our health. And my dad long ago said to me that, and these weren't his words. I think he was passing on the words of Michio Kushi, and he was studying with him at the time, and he was on a macrobiotic diet at the time. And he said, food is medicine. And I've never forgotten that food is medicine. Instead of taking popping pills necessarily, or doing a number of other things that are prescribed by doctors to deal with a health, to deal with your body and deal with things that are coming up in our health, you could focus on what it is that you ingest. What do you drink and what do you eat? And that's when I heard you speak at a TLC meeting, a Transformational Leadership Council meeting. And I said, this is a guy I want to get to know. And we took that program that you've been alluding to, this WildFit program, which has changed a lot of people's lives. And I was in a small group. I think we were in a group of maybe 30 folks, and we supported each other over 90 days. And I watched Randy not so much lose pounds, even though that happened as well. I saw her lose inches on her waist. I could see her skin get more just, her eyes were clearer. Her skin was more supple. She had more energy. I felt the same way. And now I've traveled all over the world with this green drink in my hand saying, this is remarkable stuff. And it's not just that. So maybe why don't we do this? Dive into a little bit about what you've been helping people with, not so much the program, but what is the quote diet? What's the change that we go through in 90 days? And why is it, what does it mean to get back to spring, or to go into spring? What's that all about? Is this a paleo? Because that's where people ask me, say, is this a paleo thing? Is it a vegan thing? And what is it? And if you could put some distinctions around it, that'd be great.
So WildFit lies at this intersection between what we would call nutritional anthropology and behavioral change psychology. So nutritional anthropology anthropology, yeah, there could be some comparison to paleo. What we're doing is we're saying that every species on Earth evolved an ideal or optimal diet. That means that they evolved the production capacity and the dependency upon certain organic materials. And so, you know, one of the things I would say is, yes, let food be thy medicine, right? Fair enough. But let it be thy preventative medicine.
Now, was that Hippocrates? I don't remember who said that, but
I think it's Hippocrates. But you know, the key thing is that it's not the one problem with that quote, which I do love. The one problem with it, though, is that it creates this idea that you can treat disease with food. Medicine is something we think of as an after the fact. But you know, one of the examples that I would use is that if we took a person and put them on the perfect human diet, you know, because the word diet's funny, right? Like, you know, we use the word diet as temporary alteration to fit into some outfit for a special occasion, where for every other species, diet means way of life, right? And if we were to take humans and put a single human and put them on the perfect human diet and eliminate all toxicity and all preservatives and all garbage, right? They only get the perfect stuff. But we scientifically remove the vitamin C from their food, they would get sick and they would die without having eaten a single bad thing. And there's so much focus in the diet world about eliminating the bad things. Frankly, the body has a huge tolerance for bad things as long as it's getting enough of the good things. And so when we look at nutritional anthropology, one of the things—
Please repeat that. I'm going to do that from time to time because I'm from New York, but you talk twice as fast as me. And most of the time, the shit that's coming out of your mouth is so good. And I'm going, somebody capture that. Stop him right there. So can you repeat what you just said?
All right. Well, what I'm really getting at is that our health is determined by getting our needs met. And if we are getting our needs met, the body has a tremendous tolerance for the bad stuff. In other words, look, we all know alcohol is not ideal. There's articles out there that go, red wine is good for you. It's not, okay? It's just not. But let's be
those of you that need to close your ears for this part, go ahead.
Yeah, but look, it doesn't matter that you can't live on this stuff. We're clear about that. But here's the beauty, though. The beauty is that if your body is well nourished and it is fit and it is healthy, then it has the capacity to deal with the occasional digression. The whole diet industry is predicated on this focus on eliminating the bad stuff, when the diet industry should actually be focused on getting enough of the good stuff. And then the question becomes, what is the good stuff? Well, the good stuff is anything that we evolved a dependency upon and an ability to process. You know, people are always giving you lists of nutrients. Oh my gosh, this superfood here has all these antioxidants and nutrients. Well, fine. But if we didn't evolve a dependency upon it, it's not a superfood, is it? My desk is made out of wood. It's full of riboflavin and all kinds of other great stuff. But as I'm not a termite or a beaver, I can't eat it. Doesn't matter what its nutritional constituents are, right? And so what we have to do is get enough of the right stuff. And then now we come to what you're talking about around seasons. Again, one of the major flaws in the diet world right now, and I mean, we've been talking about seasons for years, and now I see it popping up in some diets where, oh yeah, you got to eat seasonally, but they misunderstand. It's not that you need to eat seasonally relative to where you live. Look, if you're in Minnesota in December, you're not supposed to eat snow angels, right? Like, what I mean by seasonally is recognizing that humans evolved with cyclical eating patterns. That means that there were times when one thing was abundant and another thing was scarce. And then another seasonal change would come where something else would become abundant and something else would become scarce. In other words, the idea of a recommended daily allowance is insane. The only thing that there should be a recommended daily allowance for is air and water. Otherwise, there's no daily amount of protein you need. There's no daily amount of vitamin C you need. There's no daily amount of B12, B6. There's no daily amount of anything other than air and water. Your body has the capacity to store stuff. So now we got to look at seasons. And so this argument around what we're supposed to be eating is extremely important and really valuable, but irrelevant if we don't then add the other part, which is the behavioral change. The food industry is spending quite literally billions of dollars optimizing their profitability, producing foods that are nutritionally empty so that you're still hungry after you eat them, marketing in a way that takes away your freedom of choice. You know, look, Adam, I'm not a religious guy, but I did go to an Anglican school. And in that Anglican school, I remember the story of Jesus's birth. And in the story of Jesus's birth, they talked about the 3 wise men bringing frankincense, myrrh, and gold, not ice cream and candy canes and pumpkin pie. How did those things become Christmas? And then at the end of Jesus's life, I remember there being discussion about bread and fish and wine, but I don't remember ever chocolate being discussed. I don't know, how did chocolate and Easter? But they bought it. The chocolate industry sponsored Easter and they paid for it. And to this day, there are people who barely eat chocolate through the calendar year, but come Easter, they slam themselves with chocolate because they don't really have a choice. So what we've done is taken these 2 very powerful things, nutritional anthropology, behavioral change psychology, and married them together in a way where we're facilitating lifestyle change for people, not putting them on a diet.
Yeah. So can we get into a little bit of the details of that, what that looks like?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
I have a suggestion. One of the most powerful things for people to take something away of real tangible power right now, that could actually begin to make some really interesting observations and changes, is to learn about the 6 core hungers that drive human eating. There are 6 primary reasons that people eat. And when you understand those reasons, you gain some control.
Yeah, this moved me. I remember when I heard this for the first time, I thought to myself, so am I hungry or am I thirsty? Yeah. Could you start there? That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at them. If you can always edit this in afterward if it doesn't work perfectly.
No, this is perfect.
I've got the 6 hungers up on the screen right now. So you mentioned thirst. That's a really fascinating one because, for most of our history, we didn't have pottery. We all walk around with our water bottles now, right? We didn't even have pottery. So that meant that, sure, we would drink when water was around, but a lot of the hydration that we got came from eating foods that were high in water content. In fact, to this day, there are antelopes in Africa that don't drink ever. They get all of their water from their food. Now, we did drink, but we got a lot of our water from the food we ate. And so the body sometimes gets dehydrated. And then it sends a signal, eat something. Now, this signal doesn't work anymore because, of course, most of us eat foods that have very little water in it at all. But the trouble is that that's in our instincts. Our system was built this way. So somebody gets a little dehydrated and the body just sends up a signal, eat something, eat something. And of course, sadly, a lot of people will turn to a bag of chips at that point, which has less than no water in it, and a lot of salt, which stimulates more hunger and more thirst, and now eats more. That's why it's never just one chip, right? So a lot of times people can actually do a great service to themselves by just focusing on staying hydrated by drinking enough water in the day, and then noticing that their hunger goes down as a result of their water intake. In fact, of all the 6 hungers, there's only one that's actually truly a legitimate hunger, and that's the green one here, nutritional hunger. Nutritional hunger is your body requiring specific nutrients, but because we didn't have grocery stores for most of our history, we simply ate what was environmentally and seasonally available to us. So that meant that when we had a nutritional deficiency, it wasn't so functional for the body to go eat this thing, because that thing might not be available, right? So the body instead basically just says, hey, you're low on nutrients, go and eat something. That's it. I mean, sure, we have these sort of macro cravings where you might crave fat or crave salt or crave meat or crave whatever the case may be, sweet. But we don't have cravings that are specific to our nutrients beyond that. So in other words, when somebody is malnourished, they just get this message, eat. Well, consider that the food industry produces a phenomenal amount of food that has absolutely no nutritional value in it. And we wonder why people are overeating. Adam, let me tell you something. This fat shaming thing, it's got to stop. Anybody who is morbidly obese at this point in time should be considering legal action, not shame. It is not their fault. Now, I know that there are people out there saying, yeah, it's their fault. I take care of myself. I eat properly. Yeah. Remember that genetics, epigenetics, and manipulation by the food industry playing upon all those things has caused a situation now where people literally have no control. And we have to do something about that. The food industry, in my opinion, is significantly more insidious than the tobacco industry ever was. And so one of the ploys they use is to make sure that we don't get enough nutrition in the food we're eating, so that we need to eat more fruit. By the way, if you're a shareholder, if you're an investor in these companies, this is a great strategy because it's good for profitability. The other hungers, they're not real. but they feel very real. If you look at empty stomach hunger, your stomach was designed to be empty every now and again. It's actually really good for it to be empty every now and again. Clean the system out. Your stomach it's flexible. You know, your stomach can shrink right down to the size of your fist and expand right up to a massive balloon for times of plenty.
So periodic fasting, things like that.
Yeah, sure. In fact, I just started one today. I'm on day one of all I'm having is green smoothies for 3 days. Sometimes I'll go no food at all, but I do that from time to time. It makes me feel fantastic. It gives my digestive system a break and allows it to, cleanse and heal and all that sort of stuff. It's fantastic. But more than that, there's also a portion control issue. And that is that, Adam, let's say you and I go hunting, 200,000 years ago, and we score ourselves a mammoth. We're not going to eat a tiny little bit of mammoth and move on.
No, you're going to gorge yourself.
Eat as much as we can fit in.
Yep.
We're going to gorge ourselves. And so our stomach will stretch at that point. Or conversely, in say the sort of fall time when there's a lot of fruit bearing trees around, then we would not go over and eat 1 or 2 pieces of fruit and move on. Our body would be driven to eat as much of that fruit as possible, and our stomach would expand capacity to make that possible. The trouble is that most people's stomachs seem permanently stretched. They're not, but they feel permanently stretched. And so between meals, that empty stomach feeling is even more painful and more powerful. So they end up eating just to fix that. There's some other psychological issues, which they're more complex to describe, but think of it another way. Pavlov's dogs, because we feel hungry while our stomach is empty, we soon link up empty stomach to being hungry. They're not the same thing. Emotional hunger is another big one. People often are eating memories. A friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, who I won't name here on the podcast, but we can talk later. But, she did our program at one point and came back to want to do it again. And she said, Eric, I've done so well. I've permanently changed my lifestyle and I feel great about it. There's just one food left that I still feel like I don't have the power over that I'd like to have. And I said, what's that food? And she says, well, icing. I said, really? Do you eat refined sugar in other ways? And she goes, no, I'm done. It's just icing. I got this thing with icing. And I said, all right, tell me about your history with icing. And I immediately make an assumption that maybe her mom used to make homemade icing and she got to lick the bowl, or there's some joy thing. No. She says her mom used to buy icing in the tin. And I'm like, really? So tell me, what was that like when you were a kid? She goes, well, my mom would take the can opener and open the tin, and then she'd put the can on the counter. And she says, I would get a spoon and hide under the counter. And when my mom wasn't looking, I would reach up and scoop some out and put it in. And my mom would pretend she didn't see me, and I'd get away with it once or twice. And then she would see me, and it was this big game. And I said, so how are things with your mom right now? And she started to cry and get tears in her eyes. And she says, well, she's really ill. And, having some issues with dementia, and my connection with her is being broken. And she suddenly got it. I've got goosebumps telling you the story right now. She suddenly got it that icing was a way of relinking to the fondness and connection of her time with her mother.
Yep.
It didn't matter that it was horribly bad for her pancreas and bad for her health in general. At that moment, it was about the connection she was getting. And of course, once she realized that, it gave her freedom. She now realizes that it's a lie and she doesn't do it anymore. But, this emotional hunger is a big deal, again, because the food industry knows that if we can get you to feel shame, say, for example, somebody's overweight, if we can get them to feel shame about being overweight, then they will need to eat something to distract themselves from the shame. It's the perfect marketing loop. So emotional hunger is a big one that we need to get rid of, that we need to manage. The other, low blood sugar hunger and variety, they have their place as well. I mean, at the end of the day, most people have trained their nervous systems, their metabolism to burn sugar, when really they should be metabolizing fat for a longer, more pervasive, long-lasting energy than sugar provides. And then they wouldn't have low blood sugar. These 5-hour energy drinks, I mean, that's just amazing. I read the other day that a teenager died from drinking energy drinks, died because he drank too many energy drinks in a short period of time. Well, how about running a metabolism that doesn't require artificial boosts of energy? I haven't had coffee. I haven't had caffeine since I was 18 years old. Adam, you know me quite well. Can you imagine me on coffee?
Buddy, no.
We'd
have to construct some new pyramids or something. I mean, we need projects of that magnitude.
In any event, those 6 hungers, once our clients begin, and I'm hoping people from here will increase their consciousness a little bit here and start to take a look and go, wow, okay, why am I eating right now? What is really driving the decision? Because once you get that, what might be driving the decision is that, look.
That you're dehydrated, for example, or
that you're dehydrated, or that there's an emotional void.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
look, think about this.
The awareness is everything.
Such a good example. I saw this viral video the other day, Adam, and it was so beautiful. It was a viral video where somebody had gone out and purchased all kinds of CCTV footage of people doing random acts of kindness, like just, like a street camera caught a picture of a guy picking up person's wallet that just dropped at the bank machine and returning it. And these 2 young men helped this lady across the street in the Ukraine, somewhere in the middle of a blizzard. And, you just see these beautiful acts of kindness that at a time when, with the politics being the way they are in the world right now, with the environment being, it's easy to be a little pessimistic about humanity. And then this video comes along and you start feeling love and joy and amazingness about humans. And then boom, Coca-Cola.
They were the sponsor.
They were the sponsor. They went and did it, and they got you, and they know why. Feel good, feel good, feel good. See the logo, see the logo, see the logo. And pretty soon when you're feeling bad, you shortcut the process by drinking the logo.
It's an emotional link. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And I remember that from when I was a kid. We're about the same age, I think. So you remember the Coke commercial? We're not singling out Coca-Cola, obviously, because this is done by,
They're just the best at it.
They're great at it. I mean, like, if we're going to single them out, at least they're best in class, right? Yeah. Big circle with the candles. And what was the song that they would sing? Oh, shit.
Oh, I'd like to buy the world a Coke.
I'd like to buy the world a Coke and sprinkle it with love or something. I don't know, whatever it was, but it was such a kumbaya thing.
Kumbaya. And then they basically invented Santa Claus and that gorgeous, gorgeous polar bear. I'll tell you, it's funny in the Coke and Pepsi battle. This is really interesting when you think of food psychology, because there's this impression that Pepsi is number 2 to Coke, which it is, but the impression is that they're quite close. They're not. As I understand it, Coke outsells Pepsi 4 or 5 to 1. Like, it's number 2 is so far away from being number 1. It's not funny. But consider, what did Pepsi do? Pepsi tried more traditional, like, oh, we're going to link up a celebrity to this and with the taste of a new generation. All Coke has ever done is sought to make you feel good while you see their logo.
Yeah.
It's all they've ever done. And guess what? To this day, and let me be clear, I hate the product, unless for cleaning toilets and blood off sidewalks. It's apparently very good for those things. But when I'm traveling around Africa, and I'm, and because as you know, I spend a lot of time in like quite remote Africa. The weirdest thing is you see the Coke sign everywhere, and I have this bizarre reaction where I look at it and I have fondness, no matter how, like, they have hypnotized me. So we have to recognize that the food industry is they've hired incredible people. The tobacco industry did the same thing. They went out and hired a guy whose work was used by the Nazis to create crowd manipulation. And then the tobacco industry hired this guy to get women to smoke because they wouldn't smoke. And it was fascinating. How did they do it? The same way the food industry does it today. They did market research. They found out that women didn't smoke because it was dirty and smelly. And as a rule, women don't really like dirty and smelly. And so then what they did is they said, okay, but what's important to women right now? And they said, oh, the suffrage movement, independence, the vote, all that stuff's really important to women right now. And this guy just said, well, no problem. If you can tie cigarettes to that movement, if you can tie cigarettes to their hope for independence and their hope for equality, they will start smoking. Next thing you know, you've come a long way, baby.
Yeah.
And women start smoking. I mean, they know how to manipulate us, and we have to learn how to unmanipulate.
Now, speaking of that, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, but just a little bit. Before we hit the record, we were talking about some of the movies that are out there, some of the things that people find on Netflix and elsewhere. And the 2 that we talked about was Cowspiracy and what was the other one we had?
What the Health.
What the Health, exactly. And I think there's a problem when there's misinformation that's being perpetuated and goes viral. And in the interest of arming the consumer or taking care of the consumer, and yet embedded in that information that's supposed to be consumer oriented, and that there's misinformation for other agendas. Can you speak to that in a sort of a neutral way? Is that possible? Because I know you're pretty passionate.
It's tough for me to do it in a neutral way, but I'll do my best. I think that, look, in my business life, I'm extremely well known as a communications expert. I've trained some of the top speakers in the world to be able to get on stage and do what I do on stage. And I'm very good at the psychology aspect of it. And so I understand marketing and I understand this communication thing. And one of the things that we have to get, one of the features that we have to understand is that when you're making an argument, what you want to do is make an argument that can be built on a position of strength. And so what we saw, for example, in Brexit in the United Kingdom was that both sides of the campaign were lying constantly. They were both using fear and lies to manipulate the audience, to manipulate the potential voters. The problem is that once you start lying, you lose credibility for even the things you're saying that are true. And so there are very serious issues with the way the EU is governed, but there are also really serious advantages to the world, to the region, and to the United Kingdom for staying in. But the problem is once everybody started lying, nobody could hear those things anymore. And so without naming any particular movies that you may have named earlier, that sometimes branch out into the realm of propaganda, what they're doing is they're often taking some things that are very true. The way we produce meat in the Western world, frankly, in the world, is deplorable. If aliens ever come down here, we're going to get convicted for the way we treat animals. It is disgusting. And so these movies, they show some of those things, and they're very good arguments, but then they use dishonesty in many of the other messages they share. There was another movie, which I won't name, but there was a movie which I frankly very much liked. It was vegan propaganda, but I very much liked it, except for one problem is they then tried to create a relationship between meat and cancer development. Now remember, the word meat means all meat, which means that you're now talking about badly produced, hormone-injected, grain-fed, disgustingly, unethically raised meat and free-range meat as though they're the same thing. Well, they're not. And so now when you vilify meat as a topic, you create a problem. The second part of this is that in that movie, they showed this slide, and it showed that as the population of a given country was eating more meat, they tested for higher levels of cancer cells. Then they flick off the screen. Well, if you watch that movie and rewound it and put that slide back up, what you'll see is that the graph also showed that as people's meat intake went down, their cancer cell production went down. Oh, wait a second. Adam, do you really think that 200,000 years ago, you and I as hunters would have been lucky enough every single day to get meat? Of course not. First of all, we would never have been that lucky. Secondly, we wouldn't have desired it every day. I mean, if you've had the same meal 3 days in a row, aren't you looking for some variety? So there's going to come a point where like, Adam, I've had quite enough mammoth, thanks very much. I really want something else. And so there would have been natural seasonal ebbs and flows in our protein intake, which would have caused natural ebbs and flows in our cancer cell production. Just the same like with bone density. Our bones are designed as banks for calcium. So when we eat a diet that's very acidic, our bodies borrow calcium from the bones to deal with that acidity. And when we eat a diet that's extremely basic, or I should say alkaline. And what happens is we repay the loan to the bones. These movies, unfortunately, take half of the argument to make a particular manipulative statement. It would be very much like this, Adam. You and I could go out and produce a very convincing movie right now on why eating poop is a bad idea, because it is, unless you're a dung beetle. And if we could go out and convince dung beetles all over the world that they shouldn't eat poop because it's gross and it's smelly and it's full of bacteria, and frankly, it's an invasion of privacy. I mean, who wants somebody eating your poop? Don't eat poop anymore. We could produce a very convincing movie about how bad poop is. But the problem is that dung beetles evolved the requirement for it. Yep. And then if they chose to stop it because of our propaganda movie, they would end up with malnutrition, and then their species would come to an end.
Yeah. So is moderation what we're talking about? Is that the one thing that we can go back to consistently? I mean, we were talking about the Tao, the way, center. I mean, we're just talking about moderation here, where when you remove some of these headlines that are grabbing people's attention, that really what we're saying is that meat in moderation, well, proper, like if you're getting grass-fed, good meat, something that's been ethically raised, as you said, where there's a lack of hormones and things like that, that in moderation is okay.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. We have an expression in WildFit that everything in moderation includes moderate health, right? Everything in
I
moderation.
remember when you said that. Yep.
Right. So as a rule, the everything in moderation rule is one of the biggest myths of the diet industry. Everything in moderation is a path to cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and a plethora of other diseases. Used in the context that you've just said, yes, you're right. Now, but here, think of it
smoking cigarettes in moderation is not a good idea, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Getting drunk in moderation.
Yeah, but certain, but again, there's this issue of what is moderation, right? For some people, moderation is 1 or 2 glasses of wine every day. Your liver doesn't think so.
Yeah.
Your liver does not see that as moderation. It sees that as extreme behavior. We think of extreme behavior as like getting really, really drunk. No, having a glass of wine every day that's extreme behavior. And so I think the issue is what is moderation? But in the case of meat eating, for example, the human requirement for meat is very much open to debate. What is not open to debate is that humans have been meat eaters forever. I mean, our closest cousins on earth are meat eaters as well. Now, this doesn't mean that somebody has to go and eat meat every day or even every month. There are significant markers that suggest that some of the nutrients that we get from meat stay in our system for months after we eat meat. So you and I, we go get ourselves a mammoth, we bring some meat back, Elise, Randy, and the kids get to have some meat, but then we're not so lucky hunting for the next several weeks. That's fine. That's okay. I was completely vegan for 4 months, 18 months ago, completely vegan for 4 months. I just felt like it. I just wanted to. Felt great, by the way. And when I'm in full workout mode, I go out kiteboarding out here for 4 hours. Tell you something, I come back and I'm looking for a piece of meat. I get the best thing that I can.
Yep. In the little bit of time we have left, could you share a little bit about the WildFit program? And from my understanding of it, it brought us back to a place you call spring. It brought us back, it put us into ketosis. It brought our bodies back to a more alkaline state. Could you kind of sum that up and why?
Sure. So it's funny that you mentioned ketosis. We've been running this program for years and we never even told our clients about ketosis. We just ran them through the program. But then as ketosis became like this buzzword, our clients would go, are we in ketosis now? Oh, okay, yes. But there's a couple things to think about. Tim Ferriss talks quite a lot about ketogenic living and that sort of stuff. And I remember hearing in his podcast once, he said that less than 10% of people who attempt a ketogenic diet will actually succeed because it's really difficult. Well, what I would remind you of, as you know, is that we do move people into a season that we metaphorically call spring in the WildFit program, which is a ketogenic season. And we run with a 90% success rate. And now let's talk about why that is, because there's some things that we do that people can apply right here without ever doing our program, or they certainly can come and do it one day and experience it with us. But one of the things that we do is a very staged process where we work on the food psychology, then we work on adding the right nutrition, and then we work on subtracting some of the things that would take us out of a ketogenic state. And by doing that in a staged way, we make the whole process more gentle. And so people then enter into a ketogenic state without pain. They get there feeling good about it. They might find a little bit of boredom because it's a new eating pattern and they haven't quite learned how to do it yet, but they get there and they get the benefit of it. Now, I think an important thing to remember here is we talked a little bit before about seasons. Ketosis is not a lifestyle. We were not designed to live permanently in ketosis any more than we were designed to live permanently in sugar metabolism. These are seasons. And this is a very core principle of WildFit. And I suspect that you'll begin to see it as a core principle of any successful diet program in the world, because it's just correct that our species evolved to go through cyclical dietary change. And so it is healthy for the body to go into a ketogenic state for a period of time and then to come out of that ketogenic state for another period of time. That's a normal process. And in WildFit, we do that so beautifully and so gently that people learn how to do it for themselves.
Beautiful. If folks wanted to find out more about the program, see if it's a good fit for them at this point, because it's a commitment. I mean, I'll say that right up front. And I think it's a more than worthwhile commitment. In fact, I think it's a freaking life-changing commitment, but you got to make a commitment to it. And that commitment is in essence 90 days. Is that right? You don't do it for shorter periods. And so it's 3 months and it's remarkable and not easy necessarily. And I think in being in the group. Some people had a harder time with it and others had an easier time with it. And I think it hit people in different places. The psychology was probably the biggest thing for a number of folks. I know I learned a great deal, and I paid a lot of attention to why I was eating. And that's one of those things that I hadn't thought about before. Why am I eating this? Why am I putting this in my mouth? How do I feel after I eat it, actually, right? All that kind of stuff. And then it's, as you said, adding some things that I had never had added to my diet on purpose, and then subtracting things, again, in a purposeful way, in a conscious way. So I thought this was great to have you on as part of the Conscious Pivot, because it's not just about changing things. It's about making a conscious decision to change things, and hopefully with good information, and not changing based on being, the subject of someone else's propaganda, or based on scarcity or fear, or worse yet, that it's in response to illness that's shown up because you've neglected yourself or been misinformed for too many years. So hopefully this will hit people, land well with folks, and they'll be curious enough to want to go seek it out from you. So let's not make it too difficult for them, Eric, to find you or find information about the WildFit program. Okay?
Yeah, it's super easy. If you go to getwildfit.com, the information is there. There's a variety of different options for how people do the program, whether they would prefer to do it with a coach or in a class or on their own. Different economic levels that people can do the program through. We make it as easy as possible. But to your point, I really, and again, that's getwildfit.com. To your point, since you've done the program, obviously many people have done the program, but one of the people that's done the program since you finished it is a guy who is one of the owners of Zumba. Now, Zumba is probably the biggest brand in the fitness world, and he did the program and he made a couple of comments. The one is that he said, he was so amazed by the program. He said that what Zumba did to the fitness industry is what we are now doing to the diet industry. They figured out how to get people to stick with their fitness. And we have figured out how to get people. Actually, this is exactly what he said. He goes, all these people out there are looking for a diet they can stick to, when what you've done is created a diet that sticks to them.
Ooh.
Nice, hey?
That's a sticky quote exactly right there, brother. Yeah.
He wrote back and he said, "Excuse me, can we use that in marketing?" And he said,
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, I suspect that'll be on the cover of the book. But I think that, for everybody here, there's a couple of, like I said, getwildfit.com. There's a video only version that's the lowest cost way to do it. You just can do it anytime you want, do it on your own. Then you can do it in small classes where you've got, like you did, Adam, where there's a small group of people that go through it together as a challenge. We occasionally have these big class challenges that might have several hundred people all going through together. And then there's also private one-on-one with our coaches as well. So there's a number of ways people can do it depending on their lifestyle and their learning model. Basically, the way the program works is, as you said, it's 90 days and there are pre-recorded videos that they consume. So in the first week, there's daily videos. And then after that, there's videos twice a week. And then a bunch of bonus content on specific types of food or specific behavioral change.
Yeah.
Then if they're in a coaching environment, there's live coaching sessions with their coach and their team. And the entire process runs through this very gentle 90-day, 90-day cycle. And there's some things that are new to it since you went through. There's now a 13th week. So it actually goes beyond the 3 months. And the 13th week is called Living WildFit. And it's all about how to take WildFit off into your future. So it's back to daily videos and it's really immersive. And we also give them, as a graduate of the program, a free copy of the book, Living WildFit, again, as a guide for maintaining the lifestyle. So we've really, since you did the program, we did something really cool. And that is that we collected all the questions we'd had for 3 or 4 years and tagged them based on the question, based on the week that the person asked them. So we now know all of the questions from week 1, all the questions from week 2. And then we recreated the entire program and added in all the extra information that needed to be there. So the 2.0 version of the program is as successful as we were the first time. It's even better now.
Yeah, much better to meet them where they are. And that's the best way to know, as you said, be in that feedback, constant feedback loop. So kudos to you, brother.
I'd be interested in doing it. And, we can talk about this also offline, but I'd be interested, for example, in, if you've got a handful of key people that would love to do this, I'd love to do maybe a private, class for Pivot where we can take a handful of people, run them through it. Because if you think about it, what a great way to introduce it to your whole tribe. Let's get some initial, whatever you want to do.
I got to tell you, people who are pivoting and they know who they are, they're listening to this podcast, but they're also, out there working their life. Pivoting is not an easy thing. Seriously, to change career, change job, or to be an entrepreneur, which I think is the most exciting thing you could be doing these days. But it is like waking up in the morning, getting your daily abuse and loving it so much you get up in the morning that the next day, loving your life and still ready to get up and take a sock in the head, in furtherance of the freedom that you're looking for and the way to serve the world. And you got to be strong for that. You got to have energy, physically be strong, mentally be capable and strong and agile and resilient. And resilience is the key. And so to me, this is a resilience tool. It's part of that ritual. You take care of yourself better. And
Adam, you said something that really, I think it's really important to mention. And that is that, one of my highest values as a human being is freedom. I really like personal liberty and freedom. And often people give up, so many people have never done a diet or given up on diets because they value freedom so much. And the concept of calorie restriction or being hungry are frightening to them. And of course, we don't do any of that stuff. Nobody's ever hungry on the program. Nobody does calorie counting. But the neatest example of this for me was when a client of mine one day, a business client of mine came to me and he goes, I'm thinking about doing WildFit, but I don't think I can because I really value freedom. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I love being able to eat what I want, when I want, whenever I want. And I said, yeah, but can you not? And he's like, what do you mean? And I go, can you not eat what you don't want? And he goes, I don't understand. I go, well, look, you have a thing with pizza. If there's a pizza here, would you eat it? And he goes, yeah. And I go, but we just had lunch. And he goes, yeah, but it's pizza. So I said, in other words, you have no freedom not to eat the pizza. Yeah. And he went, oh. He realized he actually didn't have any freedom at all. He had the illusion of freedom bought and paid for by the food industry. And what we gave him back as his freedom. He has since lost about 30 kilograms or 50 pounds and completely turned his life around. So, that point you made about it is about freedom. It's about living the way you really want to live and not living the way the food manufacturers want you to live.
Exactly. This is a lifestyle choice. And so in any event, Eric, I love you, brother. Thank you for making the time. And where are you in Costa Rica? Where are you today?
No, I'm home in Cabarete, Dominican Republic, and the wind is starting, so I will be kite surfing shortly.
All right, brother. You'll be kite surfing. I'm going to be surfing in different. Actually, I'm going up to Santa Cruz, and there's incredible surf up there. So we might both be surfing today. Anyhow, what a lovely day. Great to see you. Great to hear you. And I'm most happy that our Pivot community get to learn from you. Experience what you're doing. So thanks.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah. Well done. Awesome.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you now have the tools and greater insights to navigate your own pivot. Help us inspire others by sharing this episode and leaving your comments over at adammarkel.com/podcasts. For more tips, strategies, and support as you consciously pivot into a new business and lifestyle you love, join our Pivot community on Facebook at pivotfb.com.